Okay, so remember that they're changing my voice because they're jealous. And I'm not gay. So in Psalms it says that the author, the person who wrote Psalm 88 or so, is saying that God's waves are causing him mental and spiritual anguish and hardship. Waves. We see in Jeremiah where it talks about waves of enemies. And this is what the flood in Genesis is about, right? It's about the water of affliction. And we see that phrase being used in the Bible as well. And we'll get to, the floodgates and how it connects to me and how it connects to the armies of heaven. Okay. Because the water can be the pure water of heaven, the armies of heaven, the nations, the peoples, multitudes, and languages, like it says in Revelation, where it says what the water is. Or, for example, the water can be the evil sea that the prostitute is sitting by in Revelation, right? For example, after my flesh dies, the people who remain will be evil. So the people, in a sense, are being referred to as water, right? It's the muddied water of the wicked, of those who don't have the faith in God, the loyalty to God, the human value to obey God through me, okay, and their offspring, because you reap what you sow. So when you sow a seed, when you should not be having kids, right, when you have kids when you shouldn't, okay, that is on you as well. That's part of, what you did wrong. And it factors in when it comes to, being judged before God. Okay, so it's pretty clear cut here. So the water is used by someone like me, right? The way, the truth, and the life, the water of God. Okay? The water being referring to the armies of heaven, through the floodgates of heaven. Okay? But the water can also refer to who you're handed over to. It's like when the people said, give us Barabbas, and they crucified Jesus. The Jews suffered, the Romans suffered, their empire was just horrible. They weren't given that relief. They weren't saved. They just were suffering. And all the horrible stuff that occurred in history after that. Okay, so when people, by their actions, they're rejecting my leadership, they're saying that they want the devil to lead them. And so they're given that muddied, evil water of hell, that burning lake of excrement is one way it's described, but it's also described as water, right? The water of affliction. And people need to understand that. Understand the language of the Bible. Part of the water is the language. When they're trying to confuse the language, they're doing the devil's work, right? God is not the author of confusion. He wants you to understand these things. Who doesn't want you to understand these things? The devil. And the Bible, okay, is not written by any of the 12 disciples or Jesus. The Bible is by someone else. And who is that? They're the followers of Baal. For example, if the Pharisees were to tell the history of what happened, they know two things. One, that people know they're full of shit, okay? And that people know they're not the good guys, them and their ancestors. They know, they're greedy. It's like Penguin. If Penguin was going to tell the story of Batman, and he was acting the same way, had the same culture, what have you, he'd know that you're not going to believe him, that he's magically is the good guy, right? So he's going to tell it in a way that suggests that he is the bad guy, but he's going to try to get you to do what he wants you to do, which is what the Bible's doing. They're confusing you about what to do while admitting that the Jews in the story and the Romans are the bad guy. Okay, are the bad guys. And they say things, the kingdom of heaven will be taken away. Because they know when you look at the modern Jew and the modern white person, no offense to anybody, that you're not going to believe that God put them there to tell you what to do. But they want you to confuse you about what to do. And they know that that certain types of black people, and I'm the last one ever possible, the last vowed leader of any race ever possible. Okay, certain types of these people were set aside to lead you. Okay, that's part of why they bred with them. There's a lot of crypto Jews in the black community. They're in positions of power in Hollywood and otherwise in politics, what have you. Now, this is key here. Everyone here in this video knows that I'm right. They know that God would not expect you to follow Bibi Netanyahu. He'd expect you to look at Bibi Netanyahu standing behind, right side by side, his picture side by side with Martin Luther King. He'd expect you to know, hey, Martin Luther King is righteous. He was chosen. Bibi Netanyahu was not. He'd expect you to know that. And everyone knows that God expects them to know that. So when they wrote this story, Baal is a deity of confusion. His tactic is to confuse you. His strategy is to confuse you, to get you to be confused about what to do. Because he knows you're not confused about the fact that people who are obviously evil and oppressors and greedy and shallow and shameless and da-da-da-da-da, you know, people who are like Prince Humperdinck, Lex Luthor types. He knows you know that. He has no doubt in his mind. He has no doubt in his mind that you have no doubt in your mind that the corporate guys are the bad guys, the colonial guys, you name it. Token minorities, you name it. But he's trying to confuse you about what to do. It's just like with propaganda. The people who make propaganda have no doubt in their mind that when you hear be all you can be, that you know that's propaganda and it's bullshit. But they're trying to confuse you about what to do about it, and they're trying to get you to do a response that they believe is favorable to them. Basically, everyone is conceding that they know that my spirit is the spirit of God and other people aren't in the spirit of God. They're conceding that they know that. They're not following suit by obeying God through me, but they're conceding by their actions and otherwise. Okay? They've resorted to make it harder for me to explain. Can you imagine if David in the story made it harder for Goliath to explain, or vice versa? Okay? If Goliath made it harder for David, okay, to speak, and he cited that as why he thinks his spirit is greater, I mean, that is pathetic. That is something that only the most inferior spirits that mankind has ever known would do. I mean, that is pathetic.